Part 62. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 611. Chapter 611 Media Conference. Without a mood, no matter how delicious the food is, it will taste like crap. Pei Xian told her a few things to pay attention to when speaking in crisis public relations, and then said, if you can't hold on anymore, you can go back to the emperor. Xiaoling shook her head tiredly. Pei Xian looked at her. Beside him, the petite girl looked paler than usual, with a sad and haggard look on her face, as well as a faint sense of bewilderment. If he lets go and ends up like this, then why doesn't he take her back? Li Lei doesn't know how to take care of you at all. Pei Xian's voice was a little heavy. When you were in the emperor, you had never suffered anything like this. No one died in the beginning, Xiaoling retorted instinctively. She couldn't tolerate others saying bad things about Li Lei. It was clear that Li Lei had tried his best to give her the best. It's not like Li Lei could control such an incident. She deserved it, and she casually agreed to the photographer taking pictures. Pei Xian said, how come no one has died? Wang Jingguan. At the mention of this name, both of them fell silent. Yes, wouldn't Wang Jingguan be dead at that time? Some public opinion pointed the finger at her, but Pei Xian protected her and never let her stand in front of the stage and do anything like apologize. But that's different. Xiaoling lowered her head and looked at the half-drunk juice glass. His so-called protection is just another form of humiliation. She would rather stand in front of the camera and flashlights and apologize to the public than be imprisoned in an isolated and dark place and be abused every day in the name of recuperation, torture. Just half an hour passed very quickly. Rolls-Royce stopped at the press conference. Some people recognized the car and took pictures, but Xiaoling didn't care much and got out of the car. Under the staff, she passed through the crowd of reporters taking pictures and entered the press conference hall. Accompanied by Lin Yunan, she stood on the main podium. Looking around, there were numerous media outlets armed with guns and cannons, as well as several representatives of civil rights organizations, holding large drawing boards with black and white photos of the dead child taking medicine from her hand. Seeing the photo, she remembered. They are two lively and cheerful boys. Yesterday, she taught them to sing for a long time. The younger one has a particularly beautiful voice. She even praised him that he can become a singer when he grows up. While she was distributing the medicine, the two children rushed to the front and happily said thank you to her. She watched them take the two white pills with her own eyes. It was she who sent them to death with her own hands. There were tears gathering in Xiaoling's eyes again. She wanted to hold back the tears, but she remembered Pei Xian's advice, when you don't know what to say, just cry. Cry as hard as you can. It's best if you can't stop crying. Don't give reporters too many opportunities to ask questions, and leave the scene quickly after you apologize. She knew that reporters were like a group of bloodthirsty sharks. If she had the slightest flaw, they would be swarmed and torn into pieces. So she let the tears flow, looking even more mournful than before. Lin Yunan on the side breathed a sigh of relief seeing her like this. To be honest, these artists did not receive many training courses in crisis public relations when they were in the training camp. Xiaoling was very naive, so he was worried that she would mess up. Fortunately, it seems that she at least knows how to express grief. Lin Yunan also cooperated to show his deep condolences. Xiaoling cried and apologized intermittently to the orphanage and the children. She said that she was too careless and did not carefully check the medicines beforehand, so she distributed them to the children in a confused manner. A reporter sharply asked, "Ms. Yeah, are you doing charity just to gain fame and show off? Do you not care about the health and life of your children at all?" She shook her head, her voice a little hoarse. "No, I love children very much." "Is it because you have lost a child yourself, so you don't care about the lives of other children, The reporter's question became more pointed, and the flashlight kept shooting at her. There was a buzzing in her ears. This question caught her off guard and she could hardly even stand still. Her tears fell even harder and she opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. She couldn't make a sound in front of so many people. "Miss Ye, why didn't you say anything? Did I tell you what you said?" "Yes, Ms. Ye, you have had a child die yourself. You should know the grief. How can you be so irresponsible and distribute lethal and inferior drugs to children? I heard that this charity foundation has a shady story. Is it true? There are rumors that you have recently bought a lot of high-end clothing and jewelry, such as Givenchy, Chanel, pink diamond necklaces, etc. I have calculated that your income as a singer is not enough to support such a huge expense. Did you embezzle money from the charity foundation? That's why you let the children take inferior medicine. Ms. Ye, do you have any conscience? Why are you so cruel that you don't even spare the money for the children's medicine?" The questions became more and more vicious, making her increasingly unsure of how to answer them. At this moment, she was looking at a vast sea of lights, and everyone's faces were blurred into one piece in front of her eyes. She really wanted to tell them that no, things were not as they guessed, but it was useless, no one would listen to her. The public relations draft that Lin Yunan gave her in advance, as well as Pei Xian's instructions on the road, had long been forgotten by her when faced with the onslaught of questions. Her mind went blank, she just cried and repeated mechanically, "I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm sorry." The voice is getting hoarse and quieter. The reporters are getting more and more excited. Seeing that the situation was not good, Lin Yunan stood up and said to the media in the audience as politely as possible, "I'm sorry everyone, Xiaoling's mood is a little out of control. This accident also caused a lot of trauma to her. Today's press conference will start with at this point. If you have any questions, just ask the spokesperson responsible for handling this incident." He supported Xiaoling and planned to take her off the stage to rest. "Don't leave," in the crowd, a representative of a human rights organization shouted, "Ye Xingling, you have to speak clearly today. Have you embezzled charity funds, received kickbacks from manufacturers, and let innocent children eat them? What's wrong with your brand name bags and expensive diamonds? Yeah, don't try to get away with it," someone shouted from the audience one after another. Lin Yunan ignored these people and helped her to leave quickly, but the crowd gathered around them and refused to let them leave. "Give way, please give way." Lin Yunan had nowhere to vent his evil anger. If he hadn't been concerned that this was a public place and he wanted to protect the image of his artists, he would have hit people long ago. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 612. Chapter 612. Whoever slanders her will do so at their own risk. Reporters were swarming around. Many flashlights were directed at Xiaoling's face recklessly, flashing wildly, and the bright light hit her so hard that she could hardly open her eyes. She cried and instinctively covered her eyes with her hands, but a reporter shouted loudly, "Ms. Ye, please put your hands down. If you are not doing anything wrong, why are you covering your face?" Aroused a chorus of agreement. They want to take photos, send out press releases, and make money to eat. She was being pulled and pulled by others in the crowd. Lin Yunan protected her, but his fists were no match for her and he could not protect her. Suddenly, the crowd was pushed away by a strong force. Xiaoling only felt an arm pulling her into a solid embrace. That man had a familiar aura on his body, a touch of sunshine and leather. It was Li Lei. His deep voice came from above her head, "What do you mean by bullying a weak woman here?" His tone was majestic and cold, making the whole place fall into silence. Reporters thought that if something happened to the Tianyi Charitable Foundation, Li Lei, as the president, would keep a low profile. Unexpectedly, he was so aggressive when he first came up, which made everyone stunned. While they were stunned, Li Lei had already protected Xiaoling to a safe area. He hugged her and glanced slowly at the group of reporters. If you have any questions, come to me. I am the president of the charity foundation and the highest decision maker. As for Xiaoling, she is just an artist. What does she know? If I ask her to be a spokesperson, she will be a spokesperson. If I ask her to take pictures, she will take pictures. If I ask her to distribute medicine, she will distribute medicine. Does she understand the pharmacological ingredients or the business management process? As a charity ambassador, image. As a spokesperson, she has fulfilled her responsibilities playing with the children, teaching them to sing, and calling on everyone to care for the disadvantaged groups in the media. What else do you want from her? The whole place was silent. Xiaoling was stunned. She didn't expect Li Lei to defend herself like this, and the tears that had just stopped started to fall again. She felt very wronged in this matter. There were hundreds of millions of children around the world taking deworming medicines. Why did something happen to her when it was her turn? However, she cannot say these words to the media, otherwise, the media will definitely think that she is a woman who shirks her responsibilities and has a dark heart. However, Li Lei defended her so confidently. Does he know what he is doing? This was a public relations crisis, and she understood with the superficial knowledge that Lin Yunan had temporarily instilled in her that this was not the time to argue about right and wrong, and she had to apologize. But what about him? He is so tough, what if it damages Tianyi's image? She gently pulled the hem of his clothes with her hand. Li Lei held her hand with his backhand, very hard and firmly. He spoke out again, this time, still speaking to the media reporters. The problem with the anthelmintics is Tianyi's responsibility, and I will definitely give an explanation to the orphanage and the public. But this is definitely not the case. Xiaoling's responsibility. Xiaoling is innocent in this matter. If I see anyone slandering her again in the future, I will bear the consequences. That last sentence, he said with murderous intent. The reporters closest to them could not help but retreat. This man is really scary when he gets angry. The scene was still silent, everyone was shocked, and no one dared to touch the bad luck of this big man with a black and Taoist background. Only then did they remember the terrifying boss Tianyi Li, and all kinds of rumors in the world came to their ears again. Many people lowered their heads, not daring to look at Li Lei. Li Lei snorted coldly, looked at the girl he loved in his arms, his eyes softened, and he said warmly, "Let's go." He held her hand, pushed aside the crowd and walked out. The crowd automatically made way for them. Suddenly, a voice that was not afraid of death came, "Since it has nothing to do with Yexin Ling, why should we hold a media conference?" This sentence did not ring out, but it was clearly transmitted to everyone in the silent hall. Ears. Li Lei paused in his footsteps and turned back. All the reporters lowered their heads again, secretly scolding the person who spoke out for being troublesome. What if they offended Boss Li and implicated them all? The person who spoke out also regretted that he was the fastest and lowered his head. Li Lei glanced at them coldly, and his voice returned to strength. "Yes, this media conference should not be held at all. Who has trouble with his Xiaoling and holds such a press conference to humiliate her?" He asked the staff around him in a deep voice, "Whose idea was this press conference?" "Mr. Mai," and Mr. Lin, a staff member, whispered. Mr. Mai is the vice president of the charity foundation and is responsible for some specific daily affairs of the foundation. Mr. Lin is Xiaoling's manager, Lin Yunan. "Very good," Li Lei sneered, "inform Mike that he has been fired." "Lin Yunan, you have been fired too." "What?" Lin Yunan looked at him in shock. "No way." The reporters were also so shocked that they started to make noises. "No way, just to protect a woman, Boss Li fired two important people in less than a second." They once again aimed their realization at Xiaoling, this time, looking at her like a monster. What kind of charm does this woman have that makes Tianyi's big boss come here to protect her? The reporters who had just asked so many sharp questions were already starting to feel scared. Li Lei didn't care what their mood was. At this time, he lowered his head slightly and looked at his beloved woman tenderly. Let's go. But Xiaoling looked at Lin Yunan worriedly. What did she want to say? How could a good person be fired just because he said he was fired? Li Leiake ignored these trivial matters, held her hand and walked out of the press conference. Getting on the off-road vehicle. Sorry, I'm late. He looked very bad. From the early morning incident to now, only a few hours had passed, and she had suffered so much injustice. When he recalled the way she had cried helplessly during the reporter's frantic questioning, he wished he could beat himself and Lin Yunan to death. Is this agent a freeloader? Can't even protect a girl? His hands were on the steering wheel and he was holding it tightly. Xiaoling saw that he looked bad, so she said carefully, I'm fine. I know if something is wrong with you, he replied, and after a moment of silence, he said, Xiaoling, I'm sorry for you. Something happened in the family. It happened to be this morning. I was arrested by my grandfather for a meeting, and I didn't arrive in time. Free up your hands to deal with the problems on your side. Recently, the family has encountered big trouble abroad. Compared with that, some situations of charitable foundations seem trivial. However, even in this case, if Li Lei's original intention is to follow, Xiaoling's problems must still be dealt with first. There are many smart and capable people in the family, but Xiaoling is the only one. But he couldn't. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 613. Chapter 613. 3 days. Mr. Li detained him in the conference room and forced him to participate in decision-making. The old man said, Li Lei, you are an important heir of the family, and you are likely to inherit the position of head of the family in the future. How can you be absent at such an important moment? Do you want to give up your position as head of the family to Li Feng? Li Lei wanted to say that as long as Xiaoling was fine, he didn't care about being the head of the family at all. However, he understood that once these words were spoken, it would not help at all except increasing the old man's distaste for Xiaoling. Therefore, he could only stay in the conference room and hold an emergency conference call with important uncles in the family to formulate countermeasures and try to turn the tide. This incident is very serious. Li Feng took over a large gang in South America and killed many people, causing rivers of blood to flow. This incident caused a chain reaction. Friends and relatives of the other gang formed an alliance and jointly launched an offensive against the Li family. The Li family was caught off guard and alone, in a precarious and critical situation. After the emergency meeting ended, the old man said to Li Lei, pack up your things and follow me back to the headquarters immediately. Li Lei said, Grandpa, let me handle the matter of the charity foundation. This matter has a very bad impact on Tianyi. I can't leave immediately. You go back to the headquarters first. I will come in a few days. The old man looked at him with sharp eyes like a falcon. For Tianyi? I think you are doing it for that female star. Xiaoli, your wings are strong now. For the sake of a woman, you will not even care about the safety of your family. With so many uncles and you sitting in charge, I don't believe that the Li family can survive even a few days. Li Lei looked directly at his grandfather without flinching. Now is when Xiaoling needs me the most. If I just do this, what kind of man is he leaving? Grandpa, she trusted me and handed me the charity foundation and became a charity ambassador. Now that something happened, you ask me to leave. Is this the upbringing of the Li family? The old man was choked by him and had nothing to say, and angrily asked people to tie him up. Li Lei still looked at his grandfather and said firmly, "Grandpa, don't let me hate you." The old man's eyes suddenly tightened. Grandfather and grandson looked at each other for a long time. Finally, the old man cursed, "Obstacle," and asked people to let him go. The old man really felt sorry for his grandson, and it was for his own good to prevent him from being with Xiaoling. On weekdays, the grandson and grandson would have a battle of wits and courage, but the old man was not willing to really turn against his grandson. "I'll give you 3 days," the old man said. "After 3 days, come and see me at the headquarters." Li Lei bowed his head and sent his grandfather off respectfully, surrounded by everyone. 3 days. He knew it was the limit. Li Feng's ability to cause trouble has always been as good as a nuclear bomb. From childhood to adulthood, he almost wiped out the entire Li family several times. Now that the old man is no longer at the headquarters, Li Feng may become even more arrogant. It is hard to say how this bloodbath in South America will end. The entire family must work together to tide over the difficulties. At this time, he looked at Xiaoling's face stained with tears, and all kinds of explanations and farewells were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say it out. After a moment of silence, he said warmly, "Are you hungry? I'll take you to rest and eat." She burst into laughter with a burst of tears. "Do you only know how to coax people with food?" she said, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Faint sunlight shines in through the car window. Her hair on the temples was a little messy, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. However, this charming smile was like morning flowers breaking through, so stunning that even her heart skipped a beat. Li Lei reached out his hand and touched her cheek lovingly. After a moment, he carefully untied the silver hairpin from her bun, took down her long hair, and smoothed it out carefully with her fingers. Wiping her tears again, "It looks much better like this." His voice made her feel peaceful. "Take a rest, I'll take you back to the villa and prepare something delicious for you." 3 days were precious, and there were many and complicated problems to deal with, but he didn't mind taking most of them to take care of her. Unexpectedly, she said, "I booked a flight ticket for the afternoon, and I am flying to City Y. There will be a tour concert there tomorrow, the first one. The time of the concert affects the whole body, even if it is like this in the event of a major poisoning incident, the scheduled itinerary cannot be changed." Li Lei said, "I will go with you." Driving her to the airport, he also checked in for a ticket and moved to the seat next to her. That seat was originally occupied by Lin Yunan, so it would be a good thing if he was fired. Xiaoling excused Lin Yunan, he just dealt with the problem according to normal procedures. There is nothing wrong with holding a press conference. How about you don't fire him? Normal rules. How important are you? Li Lei was unmoved. The manager he wanted didn't necessarily want Xiaoling to be a queen. He just wanted Xiaoling to be safe and unharmed, but Lin Yunan obviously couldn't do this. Lin Yunan is a businessman who always considers profit as his top priority. If Xiaoling can gain the status of Queen of Heaven by letting Xiaoling suffer some hardships, he will let Xiaoling do it without hesitation. Just like this media conference. However, Li Lei was unwilling. She is the treasure in his hand. "I will transfer Sister Maina back and be in charge of your entire tour," Li Lei said. Xiaoling wants to argue. "You're tired, go to sleep." Li Lei didn't want to get entangled with her on these minutiae. Lin Yunan must be punished. He took out his laptop and said, "I still have some things to deal with. I'll wake you up when we get to City Y." Xiaoling saw that he was busy and didn't want to disturb him, so she had to shut up. She was indeed very tired. The morning press conference had left her exhausted. The plane slowly taxied out of the runway and took off. She fell asleep hazily amid the faint roar. "I dreamed of an orphanage and the smiling faces of the dead children." They took the candy from her hand, laughed happily and said thank you. She woke up screaming. Li Lei immediately held her hand and asked, "What's wrong?" She was in shock and shook her head palely. I dreamed about some very scary things, she said brokenly. Everything will pass. His voice was gentle and strong. I will stay with you, don't be afraid, Xiaoling, nothing can hurt you. She shook her head again. I hurt them. Li Lei looked at her, his voice still very gentle. This is none of your business. Logically speaking, there won't be such a big flaw in the anthelmintics. Maybe Tianyi's enemies are coming for me. The children's deaths are also caused by me. It's a drag. I will investigate this matter, and you can just hold the concert in peace. He has sent people to investigate the matter, and he believes that the truth will be revealed soon. Xiaoling closed her eyes slightly, took a deep breath, and forced herself to calm down. I don't know who it is that is so cruel. The smiling faces of the two children still appeared in front of her eyes, making her heart tighten and hurt. La la la, I recommend my friend Ling Xiaohuo's new book Exclusive Cute Wife, Counterattack, The Crown Prince. Please collect and support. The author and Wenwen are very cute. He is the prince of TK Group and the #1 golden bachelor in Asia. He has a withdrawn and difficult personality, and is moody. His biggest hobby is work. Then, one day, he swapped bodies with others. You invaded my body and I tolerate it, but can you please stop taking a shower and going to the toilet? Also, don't touch my breasts. The prince looked down and asked, are these breasts? I thought they were the back. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 614. Chapter 614. The First Tour. Li Lei comforted her with gentle words for a long time. When the plane arrived in Y City, due to the incident involving the charity foundation, the scheduled pickup activities for fans and media were cancelled. Only 2 photographers affiliated with Tianyi took a few pictures of her and Li Lei coming down. There is drizzle in the sky. When we arrived at the hotel, Sister Maina was already waiting there. She came up and gave her a hug and said, thank you for your hard work. Good luck with the concert. Don't think too much about other things. The boss is here with us. Xiaoling's nose felt sore and she nodded vigorously. She discussed the itinerary with the staff and went to the site to debug equipment and rehearse. Li Lei accompanied her. When she was trying out the venue on the stage, he kept making phone calls, asking someone to thoroughly investigate the real culprit of the anthelmintic drug incident. After peeling off the cocoon, the result came out late that night. It turned out to be Gu Lin who committed such a despicable act under the instigation of Nangang Kinja. Li Lei instantly understood that they were coming for Xiaoling and wanted her reputation to be ruined. Boss, what should we do next? Tan Ying, who was in charge of this matter, asked over the phone. I originally wanted to let Nangang Kinja live, but it's a pity that she is seeking death. Li Lei's voice was deep. The boss of the Italian Cerberus organization has always liked her, hasn't he? Send her there. Tan Ying's heart skipped a beat and she said yes. The boss of the Cerberus organization is cruel and ruthless. Countless girls are tortured to death and crippled every year. Nangang Kinja has long been blessed with beauty, but unfortunately, due to the Nangang family's wealth, he has never been able to succeed. Later, the Nangang family fell, and the boss of the Cerberus organization lost interest when he heard that Nangang Kinja had been disfigured. Her face should be cured soon, Li Lei said softly. Yes, Tan Ying was talking on the phone while looking out the window. The endless night spread out in the city. In this world, dark nights have their own laws. Wait until she has cured her face before sending it to others, so as not to offend others' appetites. Yes, Tan Ying hung up the phone. In this world, the jungle is like the jungle. Just like Nangang Kinja can easily take away the lives of 2 children, Li Lei can also easily control her life and death. If she had to blame, she had to blame herself. It was not good to offend anyone, but she chose to offend their boss's most cherished treasure. Tan Ying summoned a group of men and started working. Why city stage? Xiaoling ended her rehearsal and went to the audience to find Li Lei. What's wrong with you? You don't look well, she asked Li Lei with some concern. Li Lei put away the phone and the gloom in his eyes. He looked at her and smiled softly, I'm fine. She didn't believe it. Are you still dealing with the charity foundation? He said nothing, stood up, took the shawl on the side and put it on her body. It's cold at night, how can you do it with so little clothes on? Come on, I'll take you back and have a good rest. Tomorrow is the concert. She looked up at him, what's going on at the charity foundation? I always feel uneasy. Those two children. She lowered her head slightly and bit her lip, they are too innocent. Am I even worried, stranger? What are you talking about? Li Lei's voice was very gentle. Actually, the murderer has just been found. I was afraid that you would be worried, so I didn't say anything. He is my enemy, and he is here for Tianyi. It has nothing to do with you. Your enemy, Xiaoling was really nervous, who is it? An overseas force can't stir up any big troubles, Li Lei said lightly, they couldn't hurt me, so they picked the children in the orphanage. Don't worry, I have sent people to deal with it. I won't do anything about it in the future, this will happen. These people really deserve to die. Xiaoling felt very sad, I won't even spare a child as young as that. He said, I will avenge the children. She was still a little worried, then you will be fine, right? As I said, they just couldn't find a chance to attack me, so they murdered the children. Li Lei's voice was gentler, I'll be fine. She felt slightly relieved now, but she still couldn't hide her worry. Li Lei led her outside. When she reached the door, she suddenly asked, are all gangs facing life and death? He was slightly stunned. Then she remembered that when she first met Xiaoling, she was a Bidao businessman. Perhaps in her eyes, she was no different from the Gu family, Pei Xian, and others. Even if he knew that he had an underworld background, it was just a background, distant and unreal, more like a fantasy. But now, the fact of murder suddenly unfolded before her eyes. Will Xiaoling be scared? Do you regret falling in love with a person of his status? Li Lei was a little flustered. Don't be afraid, he comforted her subconsciously. The country is actually not in chaos. No dark forces can come in. There are so many bodyguards around you, and no enemy of mine will find you. You are safe. What about you? She asked eagerly, are you in danger? Until now, she had never seriously considered the fact that the man she loved was a gangster, even if she would say let it go when she was angry. People jumped off the deck and fed the sharks, but it was more of a joke. It was not until this time that the deaths of two children made her realize how cruel the world was. How can something happen to me? Li Lei looked at the vast night, his voice was a little low. He is the eldest grandson of the Li family and the future heir. His future is full of hardships and bloodshed, but he does not intend to let his beloved woman know all the darkness. She just needs to sing well. Xiaoling was still uneasy. Looking at her like this, Li Lei felt a little regretful when he came back. He shouldn't have described what Nangang Kinja did as his enemy. Maybe it would be better to tell her that it was a simple accident. However, in that case, Xiaoling would think that it was her loneliness and widowhood that killed the two children. Li Lei's brows were knotted, and the thread of fate remained chaotic even after being cut. The second night was the official concert. The organizers had predicted that this concert would be affected by the Antelmintic incident. As expected, there were widespread ticket refunds, and protesters held slogans and banners to boycott Yesin Ling at the door. Sister Maina comforted her, there are always ups and downs in life. She nodded, I understand, it doesn't matter. It was impossible to say that she was not in a depressed mood, but she had been a singer for 2 lifetimes and had a very stable performance. Even if she came on stage amidst opposition, she would face applause and boos from the audience. Even though the situation coexisted, he was calm and composed. After a while, he was completely immersed in the music without any distracting thoughts. Perfect performance. Encore, curtain call. Sister Maina was waiting for her backstage, performed very well, 100%. She still just smiled, without any joy of success. In fact, no matter how good she sang, so what? Until her final call, there were scattered boos. She removed her makeup bit by bit and sat in the dressing room drinking warm water. Sister Maina said to her, "Let's go, Xiaoling, I'll take you back to the hotel." She shook her head, "I'm waiting for Lilei." "Why, Lilei didn't tell you?" Sister Maina was a little surprised. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 615. Chapter 615, Lao Pei next door. Xiaoling looked confused. "What did you say?" "Sister Mai Na, he took tonight's red-eye flight and returned to the Li family headquarters. There was a big problem at the headquarters, so we urgently called him back just when Xiaoling was singing on the stage. Li Lei found Sister Mai Na and said to her he told her about this matter and told her to take good care of Xiaoling, saying that she might not be able to come back for a while." Sister Maina looked at Xiaoling, "When the boss is free, I will definitely contact you." Xiaoling sat on the chair for a while before nodding. I know she guessed that he must have been walking in a hurry, otherwise he wouldn't have even said hello. In fact, this was indeed the case. Li Lei didn't know how to talk to her about going abroad for the past 2 days, and he always felt that he couldn't treat her at this juncture. He originally planned to tell her after she finished her concert today, but unexpectedly, in the middle of the concert, Mr. Li called someone urgently. It is said that Li Feng fought a second time with others and offended gangs all over the world. Li Lei was speechless for this brother who was causing trouble everywhere. Mr. Li was angrily jumping on the phone, scolding the two brothers for being more careless than the other. He cursed and cursed, but the sound was silent. There was a frantic exclamation of old man, what's wrong with you?" came from the other end of the phone. "The old man is getting old, what should he do if something happens to him?" Li Lei, who was originally scheduled to return to the headquarters tomorrow, had to rush back overnight and did not even have time to finish the concert. Although Xiaoling didn't know the twists and turns, she expected that he wouldn't leave without saying goodbye for no reason. No matter how reluctant she was, she could only endure it. Anyway, the days were long and there was plenty of time to express her true feelings. As for the current dilemma, she will handle it well and not hold him back. She took off the last hair accessory, put it on the dressing table, stood up, and said to Sister Maina, "Let's go." Sister Maina called her bodyguards and assistants and escorted her out. There were still crowds of people before and after the concert venue, but it was much better than the one just after the concert. When the show just ended, there were fans nearby, and some came to protest about the anthelmintic drug incident. A conflict broke out between the two groups, which almost turned into a stampede. The security guards finally separated the crowd, and the entire scene was under martial law, and even the police were dispatched. Up to now, many people have left one after another, and only a small number of them linger. "What are you doing over there?" Xiaoling asked, looking at the crowd of people not far away. Sister Maina glanced in the direction she pointed. Originally, the official support group arranged an autograph signing event after the concert. But looking at the situation, the event could not be carried out, so we called security to persuade them. Disperse. But there are still so many people who want to see you and get your autograph. Xiaoling paused in her steps. Sister Maina said, "Don't pay attention to them, they will disperse on their own after a long time." Xiaoling asked, "Where are those protesters and black fans?" Sister Maina said, "I just asked someone to drive a nanny car out, and the protesters thought you were gone, so they dispersed. Protesters are different from fans. Fans are more fanatical and more willing to stick around and wait for a miracle. Xiaoling said, there are not many fans left. It's hard to wait for so long. Can I go over and sign autographs for them? Sister Mena was slightly startled, isn't it necessary? Xiaoling lowered her eyes slightly, feeling a little depressed. In her previous life, she wasn't very kind to her fans. She was arrogant and domineering and didn't take them seriously. However, when something happened to her, she was imprisoned, blocked, or even died, so many so-called friends abandoned her. Only these fans, whom she could not even name, stood by her and pursued justice. She wants to be nice to them. Sister Mena knew that she was in a bad mood recently and didn't want to cause any more trouble for her. She pondered for a while and whispered a few instructions to the security guard. The security guard checked the scene back and forth and nodded to Sister Mena. Go to the parking lot, Sister Mena said to Xiaoling, I'll ask the remaining fans to line up over there. After you sign their names, you can get in the car and leave. Hearing that he could sign autographs for them, Xiaoling's eyes lit up slightly and she happily agreed. Fans were also very happy. As expected, they lined up beside the parking lot, waiting for her autograph one by one. The night breeze in late summer is slightly cool, and the sky is full of stars. Those who were able to stay until this moment were die-hard fans. Despite the vicious incidents such as anthelmintics, they still chose to believe in Xiaoling. When signing, they all cheered her up, Xiaoling, come on, you can do it. Xiaoling, I believe the anthelmintic incident is not your fault, you have to hold on. Xiaoling, the concert was very good, you are the best. Xiaoling, I will love you forever. The voice gradually revived her tired mind over the past few days. Even Sister Mena is happy with her decision. It's great to have her sign autographs and get so much encouragement and blessings. The crowd was not large, only about 30 people came one after another, and they quickly signed in at the end. Those who had already obtained the signatures dispersed in all directions, and soon disappeared into the darkness of the parking lot. It's the last person's turn. Xiaoling lowered her head and went to pick up what he handed over. Some fans will take her posters to sign, some will take photos, and some will take notepads and the like. And this person handed over his palm. Very clean, man's hands. The 5 fingers have distinct joints. There is a watch on the wrist. The surface is damaged and the hands have stopped swinging, but it can still be seen that it is a customized model from Patek Philippe. Xiaoling looked up and saw a familiar face. The man's facial features were cold and profound, and his tall figure shrouded her petite figure, casting a long shadow on the ground. He lowered his head, looked at her without saying a word, and quietly opened his palms upward, as if there was a butterfly staying in his palms. Pei Xian. She subconsciously took a step back. Why are you here? Sister Mena also recognized the man in front of her at this time, and said coldly while protecting Xiaoling. Pei Xian didn't even glance at Sister Mena from the corner of his eye. Just staring at Xiaoling, her voice was hoarse and mellow, what, you won't sign for me? The corners of his long black coat were billowing in the summer night. Xiaoling's breathing was a little stagnant. After a long while, she said softly, you are not a fan. He smiled slightly, very lightly, I am. Without waiting for her to answer, he added, I have been a fan of you for most of my life, don't you know? She was speechless for a moment. Sister Mena frowned and looked at Pei Xian, Dr. Pei, Xiaoling has been very tired these days. Please don't cause trouble. It's time for us to leave. Say goodbye. With that, she pulled Xiaoling away. Xiaoling obediently let Sister Mena drag her away. However, one arm was grabbed by Pei Xian. Xiaoling, his voice was still very low, and he read her name word by word, his lips and teeth lingering, is this how you treat your fans? Can you let me go? she said softly. Is it so difficult to just sign an autograph? He came all the way from S City to attend her concert, he cancelled several important schedules, and after it was over, he waited for her for a long time late at night. He missed her so much. Ahem, actually I have always felt that Uncle Pei is simply the legendary Lao Wang next door, 23333. The update is completed on Monday. Good night everyone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 616. Chapter 616. The butterfly is dead. She looked down at his hands. Very familiar, every joint and texture is so distinct. If it were more than 10 years ago, she would never have imagined that the two of them would become strangers one day. Pei Zion, her voice was shallow and dissipated in the wind, don't do this. How about that? He had always been very patient in front of her, and now it was even better, just to delay for a little longer and talk to her more. Standing in front of her like this, being so close to her, and touching her body may only be a luxury for most of the rest of his life. Xiaoling took her hand out little by little and firmly. I said he would be unhappy. She didn't say who he was, but they both knew it. Do you care about him that much? He couldn't say the word love, and he didn't want to use it on her relationship with Li Lei anyway. Even after saying the word care, he quickly changed the subject. Is it so difficult to sign your name for me? He didn't want to hear her answer about the word care. Sign your name and you'll leave, she confirmed. If you are willing to keep me, that would be the best. His voice was still low. Xiaoling took the signature pen from the staff, lowered her eyes, and wrote the words Yesin Ling bit by bit on his palm. The handwriting was very graceful, a bit similar to his. He taught her calligraphy step by step. It was very quiet in the summer night, and you could hear his long breathing. The last stroke of the word was so long that it almost snaked to his wrist. Her eyes fell on the damaged Patek Philippe again. She remembered that the watch was a birthday gift she had custom made for him. After she was reborn and fell into the water, in order to retrieve the watch, he broke off her hand to survive. The butterfly is dead. She handed the pen back to the staff and looked up at Pei Zion. Don't waste your time on me, find a woman who loves you and spend the rest of your life together. After speaking, he turned around and left without looking back. Pei Zion stood alone in the cool night wind, watching her drift away and finally disappear. From a nearby venue, her record could be heard faintly, and her beautiful singing voice. If we hadn't met that year, would the ending have been different? Have never met. How could we not have met before? He raised his head in the wind. Xiaoling, there are so many people who want to separate you and Li Lei. How long do you think you can hold on? Do you think it was just a coincidence that Li Lei went abroad this time? The net has been cast, and neither you nor him can escape. Mr. Li wants a grandson. And he wants his butterfly. Xiaoling returned to the hotel, washed away her fatigue, climbed into bed, and opened her laptop to read the news. The anthelmintic drug incident continues to unfold. The police announced the results of the investigation and determined that it was an accident. The manufacturer accidentally shipped contaminated expired drugs as qualified products. She remembered what Li Lei had said, that this was not an accident at all, but a deliberate revenge by an enemy against Tianyi. Why don't the police pursue it further? She felt sorry for Li Lei and immediately called Tan Ying. Tan Ying, why did the investigation of the anthelmintic drug incident end here? Is there a shady story behind it? Can you put pressure on the police and ask them to give a fair trial? The ending? Don't let the real murderer go unpunished. Tan Ying smiled bitterly. Master Boss is wise and wise, but the girl he likes is so naive. She doesn't know that this ending is now the result of Tianyi's intervention. It is the best ending for her and Tianyi. If she continues to dig deeper, it will involve the Gu family and Nangong Qinge's revenge on her, pushing her to the forefront. Public opinion is terrible, and the public is blindly obedient. They didn't care whether she was a victim or not, they would only say that 2 innocent children died because of her. Her reputation will plummet, and it may even become a stain that cannot be washed away in her lifetime. Does she know that the boss has been protecting her? Tanying complained in her heart, but comforted her, this is the result that the boss wants. He has his own considerations. Miss Ye, don't worry, everything is under the control of the boss. Xiaoling then hung up the phone suspiciously. Continuing to watch the news, Tianyi's public relations spokesperson sincerely apologized to the whole society, claiming that it was his first time doing charity and the accident was caused by his lack of experience. He would learn lessons and be more careful in the future. He also said that he would bury the dead children generously, provide generous pensions to the orphanage, and treat other poisoned children well. When the children grow up, they will have priority in the opportunity to work in Tianyi. Every aspect is handled very thoughtfully. Public anger has calmed down a bit, but many people still say, what is the use of apologizing afterwards? The dead never live again. Others say, as for Ye Xingling, she personally distributed the pills to the children, so is she just being a coward? Tianyi's public relations spokesperson has apologized, why doesn't she apologize? Yesterday's report was republished. This is the news that in the middle of her media conference, Li Lei broke in and forcefully said that she had no responsibility. There has been a lot of quarrel on the internet. Some people say that Xiaoling just has no responsibility. Some also say that she has enjoyed the honor of being a charity ambassador, but now that something has happened, she is hiding behind a man? Didn't she really get her position by selling herself? A mess. Xiaoling read several forums, and she was drowned by the spittle that scolded her. Many old things were revealed. She was kicked out of the headquarters by the Li family, married and divorced Pei Xian, died of her child, and the Pei family defected to Li Lei when they were in the most difficult time. All kinds of words were used, and the scoldings were particularly unpleasant. Someone else said, 2 children just died yesterday, and today Ye Xingling can hold a concert tour like a normal person. Have you seen it? She smiled brightly, her face was radiant, and she was not sad at all. There was another wave of curses under the post, saying that she was vicious, and despicable. She couldn't help but put on a vest and replied anonymously to the post, that's not the case. Countless people also scolded her, saying that she was Ye Xingling's die-hard fan, stupid, and mentally retarded. She felt so wrong that she wanted to cry and turned off the computer. The phone rang and she picked it up. It was Pei Xian. The man's voice on the phone was very gentle, are you in a bad mood? No, she said reflexively. Liar, he said very kindly, I almost cried when I heard you. It's none of your business, she said harshly, looking at the bustling city outside the hotel's floor-to-ceiling windows. The lights were so bright and gorgeous. It was strange. The world looked so beautiful, but why was her world filled with curses? Voice. Can't the public give her a little bit of kindness? She sniffed again. Pei Xian said, open the door. Xiaoling was stunned, what? I'm at the door of your guest room, open the door. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 617. Chapter 617 Self-Righteous Love. She walked to the door of the guest room. Looking out through the peephole, I saw a tall man standing outside the door, wearing a very decent smoky grey plaid shirt with fine dark patterns, and his eyes were as serious as a god's. It was indeed Pei Xian. He was holding an exquisite tray in his hand, with apples sliced crosswise and a variety of fruit salads, with mint leaves and honey sauce, which looked sweet and beautiful. I'll bring you food, Pei Ziyan said warmly on the phone. Xiaoling opened the door when she was in a bad mood. She loved snacks, so he asked the kitchen to make a fruit salad. But she said, "Thank you, you can go back, I won't eat." He asked, "Why?" "You know why. Because of Li Lei. I'm his girlfriend," Xiaoling said. In the past, many conflicts broke out between her and Li Lei because of Pei Ziyan's incident. Now that Li Lei was gone, it was a sensitive period, and she didn't want anything to happen again. Pei Ziyan said, "You can't survive alone, let me take care of you." He wanted to take advantage of Li Lei's absence. Otherwise, what was the purpose of deliberately driving that man out of the country? Xiaoling said, "Let's go." She hung up the phone. Pei Ziyan called out twice, "Xiaoling, Xiaoling." However, there was only deathly silence all around. Is she so determined to draw a clear line? Pei Ziyan's eyes were dim. It's useless. Xiaoling, you are so fragile. You have lived in a cage made of crystal since you were a child, and you don't know the sufferings of the world. Without the protection of a man, you won't be able to hold on for too long. Soon you will come back to me. Pei Ziyan turned around and left her door. The next day, Xiaoling got up and watched the news. The situation worsened, with people criticizing her everywhere. In comparison, her voice that said good things seemed so weak. Sister Meina was worried that she couldn't think about it, so she came to accompany her. "Xiaoling, please be patient for a few more days. The company has already started to deal with these things, and it will be over soon." She nodded weakly. At this juncture, she didn't want to cause trouble for everyone, so she said to Sister Meina, "Go and do your work, I can do it myself." She sent Sister Meina away and stayed alone in the hotel in a daze. She originally wanted to practice singing. "But I couldn't practice, so I spent the night like this." A waiter knocked on the door and said that a fan had given her a gift. This was the only news that comforted her in the past 2 days. She thanked the waiter, took the big gift box back to the room, and opened it on the sofa. The pink wrapping paper peeled off layer by layer, revealing the broken things inside. It was a doll with severed arms and legs, blood splashed on it, the neck was twisted to the side, and the eyes were gouged out. On the blood-stained card on the side were these large words, "Yesin Ling, die." She screamed and dropped the things in her hands. The doll looked so terrifying, its empty eyes stared blankly at her, and its smile was weird and twisted. She didn't know who was playing the prank, which made her shudder. The guest room was empty except for her. She felt a chill on her back and rang the bell randomly with her fingers, asking the waiter to come in and clean. Not long after, the waiter came. Seeing the scene in front of me, I was shocked. I suppressed my nausea and swept away the mess of broken doll limbs and blood, then turned around and left. "No," Xiaoling called him, "and that piece of paper." She pointed at the blood-stained card with trembling hands. The words "Yesin Ling, go to hell" were shocking. The waiter frowned, picked up the card, threw it into the trash can, and walked out with the trash can. When he walked to the door, he suddenly couldn't help but turn around and said to her, "Ms. Yeah, if you don't do anything bad, don't be afraid of ghosts knocking on the door." Although this is not what I should say as a waiter, but it is what I do as a waiter. What a conscientious person must say, "What you did to the children in the orphanage is too much." Xiaoling didn't expect him to say that, and was stunned for a moment. The waiter has already walked out. She squatted down sadly. Why, they all thought it was her fault. This is not the first time that she has been criticized by thousands of people. She was blocked by Pei Ziyan in her previous life and had a quarrel with Xiaoyu in this life. Public opinion has pushed her to the forefront, she has survived them all. But this time it was different. The lives of her 2 children were so heavy that she couldn't breathe. Subconsciously, she grabbed her cell phone and dialed a familiar number. The phone rang 3 times and was answered. Li Lei's voice came from the other end. "Hello, Xiaoling? How are you? Why are you calling me so late?" Li Lei. She only said these 2 words, but she didn't know what to say. She just wanted to hear his voice, maybe it would make her feel less sad. "Xiaoling," Li Lei said to her on the other end of the phone, "I'm sorry that I left without saying goodbye the night before yesterday. There was a very urgent situation at the headquarters and I had to come back to deal with it. You have to take good care of yourself, you know." She heard the background sound from his side, the noisy voices of people coming and going, and sporadic gunshots. Suddenly, she felt that the depression about herself was so insignificant. "Are you busy?" she asked Li Lei. "Will I disturb you?" He replied something. There was signal interference on the phone and she couldn't hear anything clearly. "If you dial again, you won't be able to get through." That night, she tossed and turned, and what repeatedly came to her mind were the dirty words on the internet, and the sound of gunfire in the background when she was on the phone with Li Lei. "Where is he? Are you okay?" "Everything is unknown." Tianyi's crisis public relations team worked very hard. However, without Li Lei in the country, and many of the team's elites were transferred to support the headquarters, they were unable to completely control public opinion in a short period of time. The insults against her are still overwhelming. A few days later, she read an article that she felt was aggrieved for her. Where does Li Lei place Ye Xingling in regard to self-righteous love? She scanned the entire article at a glance. The author's point of view is very clear. When the anthelmintic drug incident first broke out, Lin Yunan, an agent, and the top management of the charity foundation made the right response and asked her to apologize first no matter what. Originally, the next opportunity to apologize would have largely calmed the public's anger, but that incident was messed up by Li Lei. Li Lei directly interrupted the press conference and prevented her from apologizing to the public, claiming that she had no responsibility. At first glance, Boss Li is very handsome, a pure man, and very protective of his beloved woman. But in reality, he has finished playing handsome and won a good reputation for protecting his girlfriend, but where did he leave his girlfriend? These days, so many people have accused Ye Xingling of relying on her body to get to the top, of being a coward, despicable, despicable. Aren't these related to Li Lei's stoppage? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 618. Chapter 618 The Careless Young Master. The final conclusion of the article is that Li Lei does not love her as much as he seems. Xiaoling sat on the wooden floor. In late summer, even the sunlight was dim. She closed the web page and retorted in her heart, "No, no. Li Lei loved her very much, more than anyone else. This emergency was just an accident, too sudden. How could he have thought so carefully?" The doorbell rings. She braced herself and asked, "Who?" "Waiter, deliver the food," the voice outside the door said. She looked carefully through the peephole and saw that it was indeed a food delivery waiter. "But, I didn't order a meal." The waiter said, "Mr. Pei ordered us to deliver it. He specially asked us to cut the apples crosswise, sprinkle hazelnuts on the vegetable salad, and also have your favorite veal steak and shellfish. It is really her eating habits in her previous life." Xiaoling opened the door, and the waiter placed the plates on her table one by one and left. Xiaoling saw a small piece of paper beside the dinner plate, with a few words written on it in familiar notes: "Don't be afraid, I'm here." The signature is a butterfly about to fly. It was indeed that man. He is the only one in the world who would treat her like this. Looking at the table full of delicacies, she suddenly felt that life was not so difficult and cold. She finished the food on the plate bit by bit. Pei Ziyan was very sensible and knew that she didn't want to see him. In the following days, he just silently asked the waiter to deliver 3 meals a day to her, but he never showed up again. Xiaoling talks to Li Lei on the phone every day. The signal at Li Lei's end was not good, and the phone calls were intermittent. He often hung up in a hurry without even saying a few words. It can be heard that he is not in a good condition, and his voice is a bit hoarse than usual. She is too sensitive to sounds, and he cannot deceive her no matter what. But he didn't know, and still said to her, "I'm fine, I can eat and sleep every day, I just have to direct others to run around and be busy." She chuckled in agreement, not exposing his lie. Said to him, "I'm fine too, you don't have to worry." Li Lei said, "I've made you tired. Just hold on for a while and wait for the public opinion to subside. Then things will get better gradually." She lowered her head, thinking of the overwhelming abuse in the past few days, and listening to his understatement. Suddenly, a trace of grievance appeared in her heart. She endured the grievance and said, "Well, I'm fine." Li Lei gave a few more instructions and hung up the phone. He turned his head and looked at the endless virgin forest outside the helicopter, looking a little depressed. This time the Li family was in big trouble. Li Feng blood-bathed the strongholds of several important gangs around the world and offended everyone at the same time. His brother is a lunatic. The more enemies he makes, the more excited he becomes, and he doesn't care whether he can stop or not. He rubbed his forehead tiredly, wondering when he would be able to clean up the mess and return to China. Next to him, Su Tang, who was wearing a tank top, a white shawl and denim shorts, sat and asked elegantly and with concern, "Master, you have only slept for 3 or 4 hours for several days in a row. If you continue like this, your body will not be able to hold on. Our destination is still some time away, please rest for a while." Li Lei said, "Give me the strategic map." He must seize the time to study the situation, for the sake of the Li family and Xiaoling. Su Tang did not move. "Master, your body." Li Lei gave her a cold look, his eyes containing silent pressure. So Su Tang calmed down and handed him the strategy map made of parchment. He was in a very bad mood, and due to lack of sleep, he became restless after just looking at the map for a short while, and could not calm down. He closed the picture with a swipe and rubbed his forehead again. Su Tang said carefully, "The young master is really worried." "I don't think Grandpa is worried," Li Lei sneered. He didn't know until he returned to the headquarters that when the old man called him back for the first time, nothing happened in the family at all. He just said Li Feng got into trouble again in the name of cheating him to separate from Xiaoling. How despicable. After he saw through the scam, he was about to return to China on the spot, but the old man stopped him and put him under house arrest. He managed to escape, and the ship was already out to sea. Suddenly, he received news that Li Feng was really causing trouble. The lunatic brother said, "Don't you all say that I have offended the whole world? Then I have to show it to the whole world. Xiaolei, just stay at the headquarters and clean up the mess. I am not responsible for this false reputation." Ha 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 ha. Mr. Li was so angry that he almost went crazy. Li Lei was also furious. "Brother, I want to go back and take care of Tianyi. You can handle the trouble yourself." "Really?" Li Feng smiled seductively, "then just wait and see the Li family perish." Bang. He went out laughing. Li Lei really wanted to leave, but he couldn't. That lunatic brother grasped the scale of trouble very well. It was precisely when the whole family worked together to overcome the difficulties. But without an important person, it would really be swallowed up by other gangs and disappear from the world. Li Feng bets that Li Lei still has a sense of responsibility. Sure enough, his bet was right, and Li Lei had to stay to deal with the affairs. As for Tianyi, only remote control possible. Li Lei couldn't see the strategic map, so he simply called Tan Ying. "How is the situation in the country? Is Xiaoling okay?" Although, when he talked to Xiaoling, she said she was fine, but to Tan Ying if Ying calls to confirm, he will feel more at ease. Tan Ying said, the domestic situation is stable. The police have said that the Anthelmintic incident was an accident, so the public mood has gradually calmed down. Although there are still sporadic curses now, it is not serious. Is Xiaoling okay? Many fans support her, don't worry, Tan Ying said lightly. In fact, the situation was much more serious than what he said. Xiaoling was scolded so much that she couldn't even leave the house. However, the boss has been busy recently, and Tan Ying does not want to disturb him with such trivial matters. Moreover, he does not approve of the boss and Ye Xingling being together. That girl Ye Xingling is too naive and not a good match. Li Lei didn't think much about it, he just thought Xiaoling was fine, so he didn't pay much attention to her every time he was on the phone. Just like that, it's Xiaoling's second tour concert. This time I changed to a different city, and it was also the best venue in the city, very spacious. Originally, before the Anthelmintic incident occurred, concert ticket sales were very hot, but after that incident, there were large-scale refunds on her tour, and the venue looked a little deserted. There were many protesters lingering nearby, holding various slogans and placards. The security guards couldn't even finish the work. Xiaoling tried her best to turn a blind eye and not let these things affect her mood. When she got on stage, she sang well and tried to complete the concert smoothly. However, something unexpected happened in the midfield. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 619. Chapter 619, Black Fan Incident. On the stage, cold fireworks and smoke intertwined into an illusion. She wore a long dress of light gauze satin and silver ornaments, and sang a melodious song. Under the stage, there is boundless darkness. In the darkness, there are many fluorescent sticks floating in dots, which are quiet and mysterious, like the eternal starlight in the universe. Come on, Xiaoling, Xiaoling, I love you, all kinds of words swayed rhythmically with the music. Suddenly, the sea of glow sticks was in chaos. At first, it was just a small area in the southeast corner, and I didn't know what was happening. The light flickered on and off, breaking away from the rhythm of the surroundings. However, it spread and affected a large area around it. There was a faint noise. Xiaoling stood on the stage, surrounded by stereo surround sound, and could not hear clearly. She felt a little uneasy. It was a troubled time now, and accidents happened one after another. She didn't want anything to happen again at the concert. However, what happened was counterproductive. She saw several security guards running towards the scene of the incident, and the noise became louder. She was restless and her singing was off-key. A female fan came on stage to give her flowers, and took the opportunity to lower her voice and tell her, "Ms. Yeah, I am a staff member. The commotion over there is just someone who fainted due to hypoglycemia. It's not serious. Please concentrate on singing." So she ignored it, calmed her mind and continued singing. The concert is over. When Xiaoling returned to the background, she discovered that Sister Meina had a solemn look on her face and was talking on the phone non-stop, explaining something very fast. Seeing her, Sister Meina hung up the phone with a bang and said hurriedly, "Xiaoling, something happened. When you were singing just now, a group of die-hard fans beat up two black fans. Now the two black fans are seriously injured and have fractures. He was hospitalized and almost couldn't be saved." Xiaoling sighed in her heart, recalling the commotion under the stage just now, and then realized what it was about. "The little girl who just gave me flowers told me that she fainted due to hypoglycemia," she asked Sister Meina. Sister Meina asked, "What kind of girl is giving flowers?" She said she was a staff member. I saw she had a work ID card, Xiaoling said. Sister Mena said, I didn't send anyone to the stage to tell you this. Maybe it was arranged by the organizer. She was so anxious now that she didn't bother with such a trivial matter. She just said, I'll find someone to take you back to the hotel. You don't want to, don't go online and update Weibo when you go out to prevent the public from overreacting. Xiaoling nodded. Wait for further news from me. After Sister Mena finished speaking, she patted her shoulder and motioned for her to follow her assistant back to the hotel. When she returned to the hotel, she was restless and didn't know what happened to the two anti-fans. How are things going? I was restless, but finally couldn't help myself and browsed the news online. On the internet, the beating incident at her concert has indeed been exposed. It is said that the cause was two anti-fans chatting and cynicizing her, saying that she just killed two children and could sing as if nothing had happened. This kind of person does not deserve to be in the entertainment industry, she should be the one for two, the child pays for his life, and so on, and even booed her. He spoke louder and was heard by those nearby, sparking public outrage. During the dispute, the words of the two anti-fans became more and more exaggerated. The die-hard fans could no longer control their emotions and turned into a group fight. Once a group fanaticism is stirred up, it is difficult to calm down. The irrational fans beat two black fans to death. If the security guards had not rescued them in time, the two black fans would have died on the spot. Xiaoling was horrified by what she saw. What she was most afraid of now was the death of others. The two children who died in the Antelmintic incident often linger in her dreams. If two more children die, she doesn't know whether she will collapse. She buried her head in her arms, her body trembling a little. The phone rang and she picked it up. A sharp and urgent voice came from the other end of the phone. "Ms. Yeah, what do you think of the group fight at this concert? Many of your fans said that the two victims who were beaten deserved it. It's a pity that they didn't beat them to death. What do you think? May I ask you?" She pressed the phone. I wonder who leaked her number and let reporters find her? She looked at the empty room, feeling sad, and pressed Lilei's number. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. She put the phone aside and hugged her knees in a daze. Sister Mena is dealing with a public relations crisis, and can she just wait here? She wasn't willing to give in. Everyone was working hard for her, so how could she just sit back and watch? I had a conversation with Sister Mena, and after asking for her permission, she finally logged onto Weibo and left a message saying, "Please follow the stars rationally." Some people praised her, but some also criticized her, saying that she was hypocritical and later became the Virgin White Lotus. She turned off the computer. My heart was agitated and could not be calmed down, and I began to miss Lilei again. Knocking. She walked to the door and saw Pei Zion through the peephole. Under the dim light of the corridor, he was wearing a semi-old light-colored shirt. He looked calm and had a gentle face. She said through a wooden door, "Pei Zion, don't come again. I told you that he would be unhappy." "Has he ever cared about whether you are happy or not?" Pei Zion said calmly. "Xiaoling, I heard something happened at the concert, and I just wanted to come and see you." Xiaoling lowered her head slightly and looked at her toes. She thought of the phone call she made to Lilei not long ago, but he didn't answer. He must be really busy, so busy that he doesn't even have time to talk on the phone. She can't cause any more trouble for him at this juncture. "You go." After she said that, she left the door and returned to her room. There was silence outside the door, probably the man had left. Xiaoling felt empty and sad in her heart. She had no one to talk to and rely on in such a difficult time. She found a pen and paper and began to write songs. She wanted to write mourning songs for the two dead children. Maybe after doing so, she would feel better. Time passes minute by minute. Unconsciously, it's a new day. Sister Mena came to her, her expression more solemn than yesterday. Xiaoling, you must be very cautious in everything you say and do recently. All external remarks and actions must be approved by me. The situation is more serious than we thought before. I guess, someone is coming for you. Xiaoling's heart skipped a beat. What happened again? Sister Meina said, read the report yourself. She handed a newspaper to Xiaoling. Xiaoling took it and saw that it was the staff member who came to the stage to give her flowers yesterday. She looked angrily when facing the media. I heard that something happened later and 2 people were beaten, so I wanted to borrow it in the name of presenting flowers. She went on stage and told Ye Xinling to stop the beatings through the microphone. As long as she spoke out, they would definitely listen. 2 lives, and he continued singing as if nothing had happened. I have never seen such a black-hearted singer. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 620. Chapter 620. How can I bear it? Xiaoling was stunned when she looked at the report. She was a little anxious and said to Sister Meina, that's not the case. Yesterday, someone offered me flowers on the stage, but she told me that someone fainted due to hypoglycemia and asked me to sing with peace of mind. There was no mention of a group fight at all. She was on stage at the time, and the music was so loud that she had no idea what was going on below. Sister Meina said, of course I believe you. However, the media and the public don't think so. Xiaoling, I think this matter is premeditated. There are people behind the scenes who want you to collapse. Who could it be? She asked. There are too many suspects, Sister Meina pondered. For example, Mr. Li. After he ruins your reputation, it will be easier to separate you and the boss. In the same way, the Gu family and Pei Ziyan are also possible. Pei Ziyan, Xiaoling's breath was suffocated, remembering the man's greetings during this period of time. If it is really him, then his thoughts are too deep and terrible. Her heart felt a little chilly. Sister Meina looked at her face. What's wrong? She shook her head and asked softly, who do you think is the most likely among these 3 groups? Sister Meina glanced at her. No matter who they are, you have to stay away and don't have contact with them during this period. You know, she had doubts about the candidate in her heart, but there was no conclusive evidence. What she said rashly was just make Xiaoling sad. They were both women, and she could feel that Xiaoling had a special feeling for that person. Though she didn't know what it was. It's Pei Ziyan, right? Xiaoling's voice was still very soft. Mr. Li is now focused on foreign countries and too busy to take care of himself. He has no spare time to frame me. Gulin doesn't have that kind of scheming. Only Pei Ziyan has the mind and ability, and he was there during the concert. Sister Meina was silent for a moment. Without evidence, we can't make a conclusion yet. What evidence will he leave behind? Xiaoling sneered briefly. Her heart hurt. She didn't want it to be that man, and she didn't want her only good memories of him to turn into a hideous one. But she knew very well that Pei Ziyan could do such a thing, and he would do whatever it took to achieve his goal. Sister Meina comforted her, don't think too much, the truth will come to light. However, this comfort was too feeble and did not make Xiaoling feel much better. The public outcry was overwhelming. Even her nanny car parked in the hotel garage was spray-painted with swear words. When talking to Li Lei on the phone, he still said a few words in a hurry and then hung up. There were always various noisy sounds in the background, sometimes the sound of gunfire, sometimes the roar of helicopters, and even once, there was a heart-rending scream. Li Lei comforted her, I'm safe. I'm the young master of the Li family. I don't have to be on the front line. I just need to sit in command. She told him to take good care of himself. He chuckled, yes, I will. Mao has gained weight recently, so you should take good care of yourself. Going abroad with him was the vigorous and powerful leopard, who served as his assistant and bodyguard. He gently ran his hand along the soft fur of Mao's head and neck. The huge leopard yawned lazily. Xiaoling heard this and asked Li Lei to put the microphone to Mao's furry ear and said to him, Mao, you have to be good and protect your master. Don't just eat. Li Lei chuckled again. It knows he didn't tell her that Mao had gained weight recently by eating human flesh, and people wanted to kill him one after another. If it hadn't been for Mao, he might have died long ago. He said to her gently, what about you, have you eaten well? Have you gained weight? I've also gained weight, and I'm so ugly that I can't even be photographed, she pretended to complain. Her eyes fell on her bony wrist. She asked her assistant to buy a new bracelet for her yesterday. The original one was too big and no longer fit her current wrist. Li Lei. She still couldn't hold it back and asked him, when will you come back? Li Lei looked not far away. Several heavily armed soldiers were clearing mines. Suddenly something exploded, and half of a soldier's body was blown up into the sky. A rain of blood and body parts fell down. I will come back as soon as possible, he said, but I don't know the exact time yet. When I come back, I will bring you local specialties here. He rubbed Mao's ears with his hand, thinking, what souvenir? Would the dried flowers from the primitive jungle be too shabby? Apart from that, there were only various trophies stripped from dead people, and blood diamonds. Nothing is clean here. He was very fortunate that Xiaoling was in China and could not see all this. The two chatted for a few more words and hung up the phone. They had a tacit understanding that no one asked to start a video. He didn't want her to see him looking haggard, and neither did she. Xiaoling still faces all the pressure of public opinion alone. The outside world has called on her to cancel her concert tour, saying that she is not worthy of continuing to perform. Sister Meina and others urgently discussed countermeasures. This kind of thing is not Xiaoling's strong point. She does not participate in decision-making. She only writes songs for the two dead orphans in the hotel room every day, and spends the rest of the time in a daze. Occasionally, she would go to the nearby small hanging garden to relax. The small garden is only open to guests of the presidential suite. There are few people and it is very quiet. But on this day, she met Pei Xian in the small garden. At the end of summer and early autumn, there is a floral fragrance in the air that flourishes but declines, with a somewhat rotten smell. The man was wearing a semi-old but elegant shirt as always. It was made with fine workmanship and looked calm and gentle. He came to her and looked down at her petite body. Xiaoling, you have lost weight. She said, Pei Xian, is that you? Huh, he made a voice from his nasal cavity, looking confused. Xiaoling sneered, Pei Xian, stop pretending. Were you behind the black fan incident at the concert and the fake staff member who came on stage to give me flowers? So, this is how I feel in your heart. There was a hint of hurt in his eyes. Isn't it? She raised her head slightly and spoke very rudely, Pei Xian, apart from you, I really can't think of anyone else who can do such a cruel thing. How could I hurt you? He said in a low voice. But she seemed to have heard some big joke. Ha, you think you haven't hurt me? He frowned slightly. Xiaoling, I admit that I have been sorry for you, but the first time I hurt you was because you killed Wang Jingguan. After several times, I didn't know you were reincarnated. And later, it was because you deceived me and wanted to giving birth to another man's child. Xiaoling, how could I expose you to such a scandal for no reason? I adopted you from an orphanage and made you famous. How could I bear to ruin your reputation? End of this chapter.